So I recently watched a movie called A Good Person, starring Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, I can't really use this film as an intro to my reflections today without also giving away some of the story. Sorry about that. It begins with joyful scenes in the days before Allison, played by Pugh, is to be married. But then, on a way to a dress fitting, there's a tragic car accident that kills her fiancé's sister. Allison is the driver. She's also badly injured. The marriage is called off, the couple splits up, and Allison enters a long recovery which leads into a deep depression and an addiction to pain meds. Morgan Freeman plays Daniel, the would-have-been father-in-law, the father of the woman who died in the crash. A retired police officer who is also, of course, grappling with his own sorrow, Daniel becomes Allison's unlikely ally in their interconnected journeys toward healing and recovery. And there's one line in the movie that's an apropos launching pad for what I want to share with you today. It's actually the name of the movie. Allison really struggles with facing her culpability for the car accident. And the insinuation is that her inability to own that is what is getting in the way of her healing. At one point, while still denying any responsibility, she emphatically states, "I am a good person. I'm a good person." As if being a good person and making any mistakes are mutually exclusive. I'm reminded of Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, and there we go, quoting one black person. Reminded of Martin Luther King Jr.'s words in his letter from a Birmingham jail, where he writes that he has, quote, "reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, 'I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action,' who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season," unquote. Even today, more than 60 years later, those words are hard to hear and hard to own. Can't you see that I'm a good person? I didn't have anything to do with that. I can't possibly have had any role in standing in the way of your freedom. I'm a good person. I'm enlightened. I'm progressive. I'm a good person. Well, my topic this morning begins with the notion that we are free to do DEIB work. That is the justice work of diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging. Now, anti-racism is of course one part of that, but so is homophobia and transphobia and ableism and sexism and ageism and xenophobia and fat phobia and classism and, well, even environmental degradation. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear all those words together and feel their real presence, well, it's pretty hard to imagine any kind of an inclusive or diverse environment. If there is to be the promise of belonging within a circle of humanity where there are lots of doorways into the circle, then there just can't be all these blockades that keep getting thrown up in front of those doors. The doorways cannot require proof tests or secret passwords to enter. But isn't this exactly what's happening in our beloved country? You know, we hold this beautiful, idealized picture of a diverse and engaged citizenry who can all come together civilly and respectfully within a system of true democracy and where each person is guaranteed inalienable human rights and the opportunity to flourish. And now it seems that this ideal is just being thrown out and that barriers are being thrown up in front of so many of us. So many of us, barriers thrown in front of anyone are barriers thrown in front of all of us, because none are free unless all are free. And one of the reasons the obstacles exist is all this fear that's being propagated all around and within us. You know, as we see injustices happening, the self-preservation aspects of our brains kick in and tell us that there is not enough to go around and that we'd better protect ourselves, which leads to more barriers. Earlier this week, I was in a meeting with Carrie McDonald, who is the UUA's executive vice president. They were at this meeting to talk to ministers about the UUA's current and courageous efforts to both protect our rights and to advocate for those rights, and to plan for how to respond to any efforts to limit our freedom to speak and to act for our values. That is, for justice and for equity and inclusion. And while Carrie thinks it's unlikely that religious freedom will be systematically revoked, it was sobering to hear of the need to prepare for that possibility. Because were that to happen, it would be catastrophic. And my takeaway was that we should not hide our lights under a bushel, but rather lean into our religious freedom, our freedom to express and to live our values, and in so doing to claim our long history as a covenantal faith, a tradition that is solid and life-giving and of meaning to thousands. Indeed, our best protection is in boldly living our values. A few years ago, when the UUA was considering the revisions to Article 2, Reverend Sherry Prudhomme reflected that there is a mandate emerging from our theological heritage to dismantle the structures and systems which silence, harm, and exploit human beings and the varied ecosystems of our planet, as well as to work to create just and sustainable communities without barriers to belonging for all those who share our values and theological perspectives, unquote. There is a mandate emerging. So at this time when so many corporations and institutions are backtracking on their DEIB commitments, and when our governments are hell-bent on taking away rights and dehumanizing so many, we have more than a small role to play in more boldly keeping our commitments to work to bring the beloved community into being, to create communities without barriers. Because if not us, who? And frankly, the hardest work is in making the choice to do something, to actually choose to make our values a priority in our lives. I understand that in her bestseller, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?, Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum paints this picture, which is to visualize the ongoing cycle of racism as a moving walkway at the airport. Now, we could insert any ism, and the analogy still works. But with her analogy, she says that to be actively racist, one must choose to walk in the direction the walkway is moving, choosing to follow the tide. To be passively racist is to stand on the walkway, allowing it to carry you in the direction of racism. Doing nothing is passively racist, but racist still the same, because to permit something is to promote it. So to be anti-racist is to actively walk in the opposite direction to the way the walkway is moving. And again, this applies to all the isms. And this is not for the faint of heart. We have to be swimming upstream to actively engage in DEIB work. But beautifully, profoundly, we are in the company of so many others. I mean, just look around you. We are in the company of so many others. And together, I have to believe that we can turn the tide. But what can we do? You know, we ask that question of ourselves all the time, but in reality, the list is endless. I'll just get it started and invite you to add to it in your own way. Redefine what it means to be a good person. Work to understand your privilege and blind spots. Work on acknowledging that white people have to be responsible to dismantle racism, that able people have the responsibility to dismantle ableism, that young people have a responsibility to dismantle ageism against seniors and vice versa, etc., etc. Call out that racist joke your friend made or that misogynist behavior you witness. Don't passively enable animus and hatred. Educate yourself. Listen to podcasts, read books, see films and plays that center underrepresented voices. Create new and unfamiliar, center new and unfamiliar voices and experiences, and learn how to be an ally. Learn about such things as microaggressions and intersectionality and unconscious bias. Let go of a need for order or predictability. Get proximate. Go to spaces and places where marginalized communities gather. Support businesses and organizations who are doing DEIB work. Let go of a scarcity mentality. When more are included, there is actually more for all of us. Be willing to make mistakes. Even when we're being actively anti-racist, we can do and say racist things. So make amends, learn, and then do better. Go to rallies and marches. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Engage in courageous conversations. Make space, open doors, get out of the way to make room for new ideas and unexpected creativity. As I said, the list is endless, which means that there are many, many, many opportunities to fight the good fight. And I know you can find ways that work for you, ways that challenge you. Here at FUS, I wonder how we might become a more visible and reliable ally, or about how we can ensure that we have DEIB policies in place, or about how we could offer more trainings and opportunities to learn. You know, this is not a time to clutch our privilege more tightly. This is a time to be bold in our commitments to human dignity, to beloved community, and to collective liberation. Susan Frederick Gray, former president of the UUA, and who, by the way, was featured on the Growing Edge podcast this week, has also said that this is no time for a casual faith. Some in this room, and some listening in today, live without the complete freedom to live out loud as their whole and authentic selves. But I can say that many of us have so much freedom, which means that we are free to choose to look away. We are free to be passive. You know, but the only way to collective liberation, the only way to show up for those whose freedoms are being denied, is to claim our freedom to do DEIB work and to speak out with moral courage, to act with unwavering conviction. Because I know you know this, I know you believe this, the world really, really needs our values. There will be no more convenient season than now. This is no time for a casual faith. May it be so.